Hey, I'm Sven and I show men how to transform stuck, painful, and dying marriages into the kind of relationship they've always wanted. And my many conversations with men around the world about that process of transforming what feels like it's dying into something that feels quite life-giving, I find that men are often completely oblivious to one very powerful tool in that process. It's so simple, but it's one that men overlook all the time. And that is the power of community, specifically community with men who have an elevated perspective. Now, all you have to do to see that men need this is simply read the comments in our videos and other videos. What you'll see is a lot of people with extremely negative, despairing, pessimistic, and victimized perspectives. And when a man is like that, he tends to find other men who are like that. And he becomes surrounded by an echo chamber that just supports his feeling that life sucks, that life is horrible. Oh, woe is me, my wife this, my wife that. And such men, to be blunt, they never make it into a better relationship with a woman or anyone because they're living in a story, a perspective. They're living in a community of people for who life does not work and who are not experiencing the kind of deep emotional connection and intimacy that they long for. And these men, like all men, don't realize that you become like the people that you spend your time with, the most time with. And so when we're feeling hurt, betrayed, angry, disappointed, disillusioned, bitter, contempt, vengeful, and a number of things, and we surround ourselves with more men like that, which is the easiest thing in the world to do, by the way, well, we see more of that. And this is no surprise. This is not a woo-woo thing. We all have brains, and every one of our brains, mine included, has this thing called confirmation bias, which is the ability to basically, or a propensity rather, to see what we already expect to see. And so when I'm living in a state of pain, despair, when I think there's no hope for my marriage, when I think my wife is hopelessly broken, I think, man, I've got to get a different partner. And I'm living in all these hundreds of stories that are negative, they're despairing, they're disempowering. Well, that's what I see in the world. And so it will tend to make me drawn towards people who think like me, people who are having the same experience, because misery, turns out, loves company. And when I do that, when I am just surrounding myself with people who are suffering as much as I am, I might feel momentarily better, like I have some sort of camaraderie with other suffering people. But what you'll find in the long run is that you keep suffering because our perspectives are remaining very narrow. All human beings, again, myself included, can only see the perspectives that we have in our past experience. So I want you to think, hold your hands up, and think a little slit between your hands that's the little window that I see the world. And that window is defined by how I have experienced the world thus far. And so my past experience is essentially dictating what I can see as possibility for the future. And so I'm only one human being among 8 billion people. And so when I look in my past experience, I really only have as a wellspring to draw from those experiences, the experiences of people around me, and so forth. And so when I'm surrounded by people who life is not going well for them, my window of possibility for how I can see my future, it stays pretty dim, pretty slim, pretty narrow, pretty hopeless, pretty despairing. But a beautiful thing happens with our tendency to have bias when we surround ourselves with a community, and specifically a community of people living the way that we want to live, people who are living with possibilities that we have only dreamt about, only imagined. This is not woo-woo, this is just neuroscience. When we give ourselves, our brains, access to the stories and the experiences of other people, specifically ones that are experiencing things that we have never experienced, you might call these an elevated perspective to our own, well then our window goes like this, and possibilities that our brain can imagine expand. We become open to possibilities that we were not open to before. We become open to concepts, to understanding that we were never open to before. We become open to opportunity, to learning, to wisdom that we've never been open to before. And all of that happens in the power of community. Now, we can choose any kind of community we want, but what most of us do is we choose a community that is emotionally satisfying first. And that usually comes to like, who thinks like me? Who can validate that my perspective is correct? And what we're really doing here in those moments is we're just living in insecurity, saying, hey, I need other people to make my insecurity feel valid. And what you'll find is people flock together in their suffering and they remain in suffering. Now, if you want to transform your life and relationships, you have to go beyond that. You have to seek out the community of other people who have an elevated experience and perspective to your own. How do you know what that is? Well, look for the people who are living in the story that you want to live in. That means if you're struggling, let's just say, for example, with poor physical fitness, well, don't go seek out the company of people with poor physical fitness. Seek out the company of people who are physically fit, because they have figured it out. They have figured out how to overcome poor fitness with good fitness. Likewise, if you want to be in an excellent, deeply connecting, emotionally satisfying, and intimate relationship, don't hang out with people who their relationships don't work for them. Don't hang out with the angry man or woman, the person who thinks their spouse or significant other is a tool. You want to hang out with people who are experiencing deeply satisfying, connected relationships, because those people, they have figured it out. They have figured out how to have a kind of relationship that satisfies them. That means their perspective and understanding and experiences, when shared with you, they open this window. They broaden your perspective. They allow your brain to consider what your brain has not considered before because of our confirmation bias. And so what we find is when we bring a person into a community, specifically a community of men with elevated perspectives and who are living at a level that is above average, and that's in a lot of ways: fitness, relationships, finances, career, passion, mission, you name it, that it raises all of the men in that community up to the same level. Now, in the Mentoring Men community, we guard our community quite carefully, meaning we don't just welcome anybody, because we care about the perspectives and we care to offer and to live in elevated perspectives. And so we have a very careful way of engaging men that would like to be with us, so that we don't become lopsided with having, people that are this like low, pessimistic, victimized, defeated, disempowered worldview. Our community is not built with men like that. In fact, we don't have an appetite for men that live in that place. Instead, what we do is we invite men to get to know us. We try to help them elevate their perspective to a degree where they want to join in a better conversation, where they want to broaden their window, where they want to stop living in blame, victimization, powerlessness. Those are not attributes of people who live a great life. Those are attributes of people who suffer. And our goal is to help men stop suffering and start thriving. And we do that in the context of a community. Now, if you're watching this video saying blah, 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 and you're feeling hurt and you're poo-pooing and you want to leave an angry comment, well, go ahead. We know what community that you belong to, and it's not ours. But if you're watching this video, you're saying, yes, I want to talk to men who are highly emotionally intelligent, men that are very deep, men that can talk about their insides in great detail without blaming others, without pointing fingers, without judging, without beating their chest in false machismo. If you want to talk to and get to know a group of men like that, I want to challenge you to reach out and let's talk, because we have that community for you, and we'd be excited to have a man like you join it. You can find out how to do that by just scrolling down and looking in the video description. You'll see where you can set up a call with one of our mentors, myself included, where we can get to know you, we can hear more about your story, what's not going well, what would you like to see different, and we'll tell you about our community. And if we feel like you're a good fit and you feel like we're a good fit for you, we would love to invite you into that community and have you join us in our collective effort to elevate all of our perspectives. With that, I wish you a good day. I hope to see you on the other side of this screen. And in the meantime, do not underestimate the power of community for your transformation. Again, I'm Sven Masterson. I'll talk to you soon in another video. Take care.